Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you? This is Freddie Ewan, three-time GM of the Year, the 2022 Pan Am Cup champion, the 2023 TPFFKAL regular season champion, the 2024 Pan Am Cup runner-up, the 2025 TPFFKAL playoff failure, and of course, host of that fantasy football show with Freddie Ewan. We're doing a complete makeover on the show. Fantasy football season might be over, but over here, it is just getting started for next year. A lot of preparations going on for what is coming in 2026 with fantasy football. I am super excited about it. We're gonna try to get some really good experts on the show in the next few months as we try to put this together. You can see that we have a new title for our show. It is called No Limit Fantasy Football. We are going to try to bring No Limit Fantasy Football to the world. The evolution is here. The prototype is finished. More work needs to be done. We're going to get some experts on here to help us get this together and put it together and make the ultimate fantasy football league and app so we can take fantasy football to the next freaking level. I'm excited about this. I don't know if anyone else is, but I'm excited about this. Um, Put a bunch of data in the last time we talked. I'm trying to keep these a little last show was about 30 minutes long. Tough to watch me and listen to me for 30 minutes. I know when we have some guests on, we'll make it a little bit longer, but I'm going to try to put these in little different segments so we can get these about 15 minutes, 20 minutes long is what I'm really looking for here on this show. What we're going to talk about today is we touched a little bit last time on keepers, luxury tax, no limit fantasy football, the little kind of kind of failed a little bit because the luxury tax wasn't really a luxury tax. B, just a little bit of the inexperience, people not knowing what keepers were, their first auction draft, the whole nine yards, really couldn't get that really strong data that we needed. The one thing that we know, if you spent a lot of money, you're going to do much better. If you spend a little bit of money, you're not going to do well. However, we want to figure out a way where if a middle market team spends a little bit, I gotta get my trigonometry book out. It's been a while, but I'm trying to figure out the exact percentages is okay, if 12 GMs of equal skill all join a $1,000 league, all right, the chance of winning that league is 1/12. If they spend $500 in a $15,000 league where another team is spending $3,000, I don't have those percentages off the hand, but the percentages obviously go way down based on the spend, but the opportunity is there to win more money. What we got to figure out is how drastically different it is in teams and personnel and whatnot. Keepers played a big part of this year in this no limit fantasy football league. I wasn't the one who said, hey, let's have keepers in this, but I actually now think keepers are a good thing if it's going to be a dynasty league with the same GMs playing each year. There's an opportunity for teams to keep keepers, and I think if you understand what keepers mean to start out with, if you know what a keeper is, maybe the level number of keepers can change based on the league standings, based on spend. That's one thing that we're throwing around. I'm gonna get Dang on, who played in this league with me. Dang's a genius. He knows his stuff. He's a better fantasy football player than I am. And I'm gonna try to get Jimmy on. Jimmy always sticks up for the little guy, so he might bash me a little bit. We were talking a little bit this week and he was bashing me, which is fine. I'm used to getting bashed by Jimmy. Not a big deal. Anyway, let me see if I can get this right. We are going to share my screen. Here we are. We are on. All right. So anyway, we're going to talk keepers. Keepers in an auction draft. It's very simple. What usually do in most auction drafts is if you want to keep a keeper from one year to the other, there's usually a value that needs to be tacked on. Usually it's $5 in a $200 league. If you want to keep the guy, it's $5 more than his price before. That's usually how it works most of the time. Sometimes it's $10, sometimes it's $7, sometimes you can keep him for 3 years and that's it, et cetera, et cetera. The most people know this, that most people who watch the show should know this, but basically keepers is in a standard auction draft where everyone gets the same amount of money to start the year out, which is unlike a no limit fantasy football league and unlike the TPFFKL where you can cap room for future assets or for current assets. You can trade your future assets for current assets. You couldn't do that in this no limit league. But the whole idea, getting back to this, the whole idea of what a keeper is to inflation management. So basically, you want to find a guy who you did not pay a lot of money for, who had a breakout season. Rookies are a great point. Bucky Irving, no one drafted Bucky Irving. He was maybe like a dollar if anyone drafted him the year before. Blew up. He didn't have a great year this year, but he had great keeper value. Brian Thomas Jr., another guy this year, didn't have a great year, had great keeper value at the beginning of the year. Guys that you are not keeping are guys who were first round picks the year before because you probably paid a lot of money for them. Guys like Justin Jefferson, who's been a first round pick forever, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, goes on and it goes on and on. Any first round picks, usually second round picks. You want to find guys that were picked the year before or drafted for a low price that you keep because that's where you find value. Now, in this no auction league, it didn't matter because somebody, you're not managing inflation here. You're basically like, oh, hey, I like this guy. I paid $150 for him. I think it was a 15% increase of whatever you paid in the in this no limit league. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter for some of these guys. The good GMs, the GMs that were smart, it did matter. And we'll see that right here. So budging also goes completely out the window. Might be personal budgeting, but if you're not budgeting at all, if you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on your team, you don't have to worry about budgeting. So keepers are a little bit different in a no limit fantasy football league than a regular auction league, obviously. Erwin R. Shyster, we're going to get into that. Erwin R. Shyster was one of my favorite WWF wrestling heroes. The guy was great. He teamed up with Ted DiBiase, Money Incorporated, the ultimate bad guy. I love the heels. There needs to be heels. There needs to be heels in everything. In poker, fantasy football, the world needs heels. Here is a couple of our keepers. I went through this last time. I'm just going to get through this really quickly. Justin Jefferson, not a good keeper. You're not getting value for this guy. This right here, that blue line was the price to keep. The pre-draft value of him, not getting any value at all. Chase Brown on the other side. Chase Brown is a perfect example. Guy was like a 10th round pick the year before. He was the second round pick this year. Look, this guy, it was something like, I think it was like $15 to keep him. He was worth $177.84 in this auction league, in this no limit auction league. That's how much his worth was. Brian Thomas Jr. also. Both these guys, Chase Brown turned on at the end of the year. Brian Thomas Jr. had a horrible year, but same thing. Pre-draft, everyone thought he was going to rumble. That's great value. Bijan Robinson here, I guess you could call that value. First round guy, paid a lot for him. This is where no budget comes into place, though. Most people would not keep Bijan Robinson because he had a high value the year before. Bucky Irving, another great example. The best example, well, maybe not the best example, but JSN, great example. JSN had, $30 keeper, keeps him. He only had $118.17 value. But if this guy can keep JSN again next year, JSN's value is going to be, probably about $250, $260. My boy Dang has him in this league. He's going to get to keep him for 30, $40. So keepers are just really worked a little bit different in this league. And then, this is what I wanted to get to. Back to Erwin R. Shyster, is there was this guy, I don't know whether he did not know what a keeper was, or I don't know, or he missed the emails or something, or I would just love to ask him. I don't know this guy, but I would just love to ask him, like, why did you do that, dude? Why did you do that? So this guy had James Cook, Josh Allen, and Nico Collins. And he could have kept these guys he could have kept Josh Allen for $211. Huge price to pay for a quarterback in a one quarterback league. Remember, we talked, you're in a good league when guys are paying huge amounts of money for the top quarterbacks. You're in a good fantasy football league. So, all right, huge amount to keep this guy. James Cook, that's great value, $63.25. I think the average spend was $984 or something. That's a great price for James Cook. Same thing, Nico Collins, $74.75 to keep these guys. He didn't keep any of these guys. The draft starts, and he pays $400 for Josh Allen. You could have kept him for $211. And the other thing is, this is actual real dollars, real money. I wish I wish I could burn through money like that. I wish I had that much money to just to burn through. But Nico Collins, same thing. Like $74. He ended up paying, I think, $325 for this guy when he could have just kept him for $74. Like I don't get it. James Cook, $55. He paid $225 for this guy. So this guy ended up finishing third in the league. He had top points. I think he had the highest spend or the second highest spend. I think he spent $3,100 or something. He would have spent way less, and he actually finished third. He got third place. He got a third place prize, and he got top points 7 times, I think. And the guy lost money. And if he kept these keepers, he would have won like $800, but he lost like $200. That's made absolutely no sense to me. Um, which is one of the reasons why this league as a prototype, there were a lot of questions on how to put together an actual fantasy football league. And this is one of the reasons I don't want to offend anyone, but just the pure inexperience of some of these players is why these questions have just popped like well, weird, strange stuff, very strange stuff. So, going down, let me see if I can get down here. I'm still sharing my screen. I don't know if this thing freezed up or what. Oh, it did. Here we go. All right, let's go back up. Let's go back up. Now I'm all over the place. All right, so we got a couple logos. We're gonna have a logo vote. Um, We're also going to have a slogan vote. I came up with this slogan myself. I love this slogan. Can't beat them, buy them. There's a lot of other bear slogans, but this is the one I came up with myself. No limit fantasy football. Can't beat them, buy them. No limit fantasy football. That's another great logo. They're a great logo, except this guy's got 3 arms. I did this with AI, but can't beat them, buy them. Maybe you need 3 arms to win fantasy football. We're going to talk about guys that will mix in this league. We're going to talk about the target market in this league. I want to get to the first guy is the guy who never won a league GM. All right. So this is Ben right here. Ben just happens to be a Bears fan. I guess I named him after Bears Johnson. I don't know. But anyway, Ben has never won a fantasy football league before. Ben has drafted the best quarterback in the first round every year. He's also drafted the best defense in middle rounds every year. But for some reason, he has never won a fantasy football league. Sometimes he'll make the playoffs, 16 leagues, probably never makes the playoffs. Never really been in an auction draft before, but Ben Ben has a tough time winning at fantasy football. With no limit fantasy football, Ben is now a champion because he spent whatever he want. Look at this poor sad guy, Ben. He's so sad, not winning in fantasy football. He could pay for anyone. He could draft 2 quarterbacks. He could draft 4 running backs, 4 of the top running backs. And guess what? Ben not only turned into a bear, but he is now a champion with a big check. That is what no limit fantasy football is about. Let's take a look at our next guy. Our next guy is Jerry. All right. So Jerry is a busy guy. Jerry's a busy, busy businessman. All right. He's got a family. He's, kind of casual football, fantasy football watcher, but he's got a bunch of friends and buddies from college back in the day who plays fantasy football. They keep saying, come on, Jerry, it'll be fun. Be fun. And Jerry's like, I don't know, but so Jerry's in couples therapy with his wife, and his wife suggests you get more hobbies. So he comes and plays fantasy football. He joins this fantasy football league, and it's obvious from the start his buddies take it way too seriously, way too seriously. All right, they're talking about keepers, and he's thinking, I thought a keeper is a goalie. Are we playing, American football or fantasy football or whatever? Jerry then joins the No Limit League. Keepers don't even matter. All right. Doesn't need a goalie, doesn't need a keeper. Look at him. Confused, misinterpreted after no limit fantasy football. This guy is making money and a champion. Let's take a look at the next guy. And I always try to keep politics out of fantasy football completely. I didn't put this together. Someone else did for me. But so, no political opinion. This is not correlating anything with anything. But this is Dale. All right. Dale's angry. All right. Dale is freaking angry. All right. He's angry at everything. He doesn't like his wife. He doesn't like his kids. He's got strong views on topics. If you don't agree with him, he's angry on those topics. All right. A friend suggested for fun, let's join a fantasy football league. Dale doesn't like fun. All right. He doesn't know how to play fantasy football. Came in dead last. All right. Made him angry. Guess what? Dale joined the No Limit League. He spent thousands of dollars and won a championship. We went from Dale being angry to now a fantasy football champion. These three guys are the targets. They would love to play fantasy football where they can spend to win. They would love it. Let's get to what we're looking for, though. The guys like Mike Dang and Jimmy V. And yeah, I'm going to add it too. Freddie E. The Sharks. These are the Sharks. These are the guys that stream their defense once a week. These are the guys that draft their kickers last. These are the guys that aren't paying first round prices for quarterbacks. These are the guys that are drafting Matt Stafford. These are the guys that are drafting Patrick Mahomes because he had a bad year last year. These guys are the guys who are drafting offense good players on good offenses, not stars. These are the guys who did not draft Saquon Barkley this year, looking at the numbers, knowing that any guy who ran 2,000 yards the year before isn't going to come close to that the year after. History doesn't lie. These are the Sharks. They know what the term handcuff means in fantasy football. In fantasy football. Key on that. And they're going to be spending mid-market money trying to beat these three guys. I saw two of these guys do it in this league. I could have done it. I spent 500 bucks. I wanted more of a challenge. I think if these two guys, if they spent, I think one came in second, he spent like $784. The other guy came in first. I think he spent like the other guy came in first in the regular season, busted out of the playoffs. I think he spent like $1,000. These are the great smart GMs. I wanted more of a challenge. I thought if I spent $1,000, I could have probably been up higher in the league much easier, probably done a lot better. I wanted to spend the minimum amount and to see if I could get in and make any money with the top points and whatnot. And I think I accomplished my goals the last 2 years in this league. I think I was both the 10th. I think the first year I was the second least spend, came in seventh, made the playoffs and hit the top points a couple times. And last year I think I was the 10th spend, hit top points, made the playoffs, but moved up from my spend both times. If I had spent more, I probably would have done much better. So this is the happy equilibrium that we want to get through. We're going to talk about guys who don't spend a lot of money in the next episode and how we can keep them in the league. That's what we're going to talk next. Um, I'm going to put this on, but anyway, we're looking for smart guys to put this test league together for 2026. And first off, you should consider yourself an experienced GM. You should consider yourself that you've played fantasy football before, that you've been in an auction draft before, that you know what a guillotine draft is, that you know what a best ball draft is. You should have a DraftKings. You should have a DraftKings profile. You should probably play that every now and then. You should have a Yahoo rating that is, a silver or better, maybe. You should have finished at least top three in at least one fantasy football league in the last 5 years. Those are the guys we're looking for. We're looking for a commissioner who's been a commissioner before in a different league. I'm a horrible commissioner. Everybody knows that I'm the commissioner of one league and I'm awful at it. I am a disorganized mess. I'll forget to pay guys $25 for top points and have to pay them 6 months later and whatnot. I'm a horrible commissioner. So we're looking for a commissioner who can put their shit together. I know we're gonna get our man J Dot, who's gonna help us out with our files and everything like that, but we're looking for a good experienced commissioner. And then we're gonna put the ideas together. I'm going to put this up. This is just, I think this can be done with 12, 14, or 16 leaves. You can spend how much ever you want. The one thing that we're talking about too is that, it's a one quarterback league, obviously. Two quarterback leagues, getting to that, it's going to be a little bit different, but one quarterback league, and it could really be set up however you want. But I saw one of the things this year which really favored the teams who spent a lot of money, a lot more than the teams who didn't, is, some guys bought three running backs, two quarterbacks, four wide receivers before any other guys bought one. And some of the guys' benches, like one guy's benches, was probably better than half of the teams. So that's something that you got to figure out a little bit in a no limit league. Also have to figure out the luxury tax, obviously. There has to be a luxury tax, probably. Maybe there doesn't have to be. Different bonuses to keep people active. The whole idea that I want behind this league is I want the teams to spend money. They're going to have the best chance to win. but I also want teams that are spending middle market money and low market money have some chance to profit and to keep playing. Um, Knowing that, hey, my chances are so minuscule to win this league. But hey, if I spent $1,000 and that's the lower end. All right. Do I have a chance to get some of that money back, or maybe a little bit more of that money back by not actually winning the league or coming in the top three, making the playoffs? Probably you have to in a 12-team league. If it's bigger than that, there's lots of different things we can do. But those are the ideas. I don't have all the answers, and that's why I'm looking for experienced guys to come join me with this so they can help me with the answers. Here's just a couple more things that I put on here. Keepers are another thing. Everyone got to keep four keepers in this league. I think that they're reducing that to three. I don't know why or why they're doing it. Or like I said, there was a lot of inexperience in this league. But I think, one thing, if you look at, let me just go back to the keepers, but if you actually look at the guys who are, not the guy who spent $800 more, the guys who had cap, but you look at some of these guys, I wanted to put, some good keepers down here. Like one of the things that you might be able to do is that, based on the standings, the guys who finished last, just like the NFL, if you finish last, you get a higher draft pick. Maybe these guys can have four keepers. While if you finish in the top, maybe you can only get one keeper. Those are just ideas that I'm throwing around. Anyway, I'm gonna post this and put this on our next show. What I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to get my boy Mike Dang on here. We've been talking about a couple things. I'm going to try to get my boy James Winchell on here. I'm going to try to get Jimmy on here because I know Jimmy's going to throw a lot of bullshit at me, but I'm going to try to get some really good experienced players on here. And then I'm going to get some experienced guys who haven't even tried this or haven't even heard of it. Magic Matt's going to be one of those guys. Magic Matt's been talking about coming on the show for a long time. Guy is a smart GM. Luckily, I had beat him in the big money league this year to get the first big money championship for myself, which I was super excited about. But we're gonna get him on here. Great GM. I think he's always at the top of the list in leagues that I played for him. Very, very good DraftKings player. Guy really knows his fantasy football and really knows his stuff. And those are the guys that we want to kind of communicate with. Like I said before, we had guys prior to this, prior that were in this league on this show, just guys that were just in this league only. And the interviews I knew from the start, and of course, no offense to anyone, but I knew from the start, like the first interview, couldn't really get a flow when, this is a fantasy football show. I couldn't really get a flow he couldn't really keep the conversation going on fantasy football. And the guy, believe it, who won last year, we had him on the show, and I think he was trying to do some persona or something. It had nothing to do with fantasy football. Like I think that show was 6 minutes on. We cut him, we deleted it almost immediately because it was just such a, we talk fantasy football on this show. We don't need personas, and if you can't talk about fantasy football, it's okay. We can talk about other things, just not on this show. Anyway, everyone have a great Sunday. Our next show is going to be with the TPFFKL commissioner. We're going to get him on. We're going to discuss the TPFFKL rules. That's going to be specifically for the TPFFKL. And then hopefully this week later on, we're going to get Dang on, and then we'll go from there. Anyway, have a great night, guys. Once again, my name is Freddie Ewan. I am the three-time GM of the year for the TPFFKL, the greatest fantasy football league in America. And now my boy Jimmy shares that honor with me. Anyway, have a great evening. Take care, guys. I love you all. Bye bye.